You know, it was just the statue. The statue is the word that just kind of, as a child and as a teenager, it was always a case of the bus. You get the bus to the statue, you'll meet somebody at the statue. And you know, recently I was kind of thinking about the statue. You know, in other places they call it things like the monument, but in Cork it's the statue, and you kind of go, why was Father Matthew called the statue? And then you kind of think maybe it's a Catholic thing, that they had St. Anthony's and Holy Mary's and it was the statue. But then you have this huge thing that's about 4,000 times the size of the statue at home in the middle of Patrick Street. And I actually figure, thinking about it long and hard, that it has more to do with the fact that statue rhymes with Matthew. We like the lyricism of it and we can't help ourselves, you know. So, and nobody in Cork, no matter how refined you are, calls it Father Matthew statue. It's always Matthew's statue. So there's a lyricism there that I think actually is what appealed to Cork people. For me, I suppose the first memories of the statue, what I'll always associate it with, is being a teenager and getting the last bus home, because you'd have to go to the statue. And the last bus always left at 11:15. And you'd have the buses lining up, facing southwards or northwards on either side of the street. And they were almost like not horses, but dogs in traps. You know, you could almost feel the engines were getting ready to leave the trap, because what used to happen was, once you got on board and you were there, and in those days you had a conductor, the man or the inspector used to come out of the bus hut, which was under the shadow of the statue, and blow his whistle, and the buses took off. And no matter how often I was on the bus at that hour of the night, you were always with the sense of waiting for the whistle to be blown by the inspector under the statue. And they took off, and I suppose, you know, you just felt the excitement that they were finishing their day and you were actually getting home, and you weren't going to be killed because you missed the last bus from the statue. So I suppose they're my associations with the statue. I think it's intrinsically Cork. For me, on a romantic level, I suppose Father Matthew has seen everything from famines to feasts to festivals. I kind of curiously wondered the other day what happened during the burning. Did he witness that as well? Was he standing there wondering what was going on? There's a calmness that the statue brings, and it's kind of hard to imagine the city centre without it, because he's just there. He's calm, his hands are outstretched, and I suppose he's probably the only person who's been in more St. Patrick's Day parades than I have, and he'll always have that record. But I suppose that's really what it means to me. It's just, as long as Father Matthew is standing serenely at the top of Patrick Street, all is right with the world.
Your kids, my kids, mean anything to the modern kids?
Actually, funnily enough, I don't think so. Not consciously anyway. I don't think for the moment that they're aware of it as anything other than this statue. I don't think they're as romantically involved with it as we were. You know, they don't get off the bus at the statue as such, or they don't have dates on the Vermengen's clock near the statue. I don't think that's the way it is, but I think as they get older, it's just, you can't help it. It seeps into you. It's part of your DNA as a Cork person. If, you know, every postcard when they're abroad, if they see Father Matthew, they'll be thinking of Cork. And
so, is it worth celebrating?
Celebrating is a funny old word. I don't know if I suppose celebrating, it's worth treasuring, I think, is what I would say. Celebration is kind of something that happens and is over, whereas I think with Father Matthew you have to, it's just to be treasured. And I suppose the best part for us is, you know, when you think about it, there a couple of years ago when Beth Galley suggested removing it from Patrick Street, and suddenly people who had never thought about it, people who pass by it day in day out, suddenly stopped still and kind of went, oh no, that's not going anywhere. So I think really, as you said to me there about kids, whether it's in their consciousness, they probably aren't aware of it, but they will be. And it's a bit like that. Maybe if it happened in 10 years' time, would they miss it? Would they react like we would? Yeah, I'd say they would, because it is Cork.